Throughout her career, Amie has been an advocate for the advancement of women in business, politics, and the military. Please give a warm welcome to Amie Hoeber.
Thank you for the opportunity to be here today. I'm delighted. Some of you I know, not all of you, and so I will tell a little about my background. And, all right, how did you solve that, Terry? Off to the side. Okay. Okay, maybe that'll work. I'll stand back and drop. No, I'm running for the Congressional seat of CD6 because I think I have the energy, the expertise, and the resources to bring this district back into Republican hands. As you may know, the district originally, or at least in history, has been largely Republican controlled until it was gerrymandered away from us. The western part of the district was held by Roscoe Bartlett for many years, and by the way, Roscoe recently spoke on my behalf at a meeting in Buckystown. The eastern part of the district was held by Connie Morella, who's also a close friend of mine and will be, I believe, a supporter after the primary. I think I have worked on national security all my life. I think you all know that, quite literally since the day I got out of college. I went to my favorite professor and said, this is all very nice and good. This has been a great college experience, and how do I pay my rent next week? I mean, this is quite literally the conversation. And he sent me to a company called Stanford Research Institute, where I was hired to work on Army ballistic missile defense. And I was hired, I accepted that job because it was the only job I got offered that day, and I really did have to figure out how to write my rent check. And it went on from there. I was one of the very few women in the defense business. This was both an advantage and a disadvantage. The disadvantage was I got paid considerably less than the men who were hired for the same work. One of the sources of my becoming later a very strong advocate for women. But it also had the advantage that I got remembered. The first professional meeting I ever went to was 3,000 men and me. Frankly, I had a great time. But the advantage was that I did get remembered. Everyone knew who I was, and this helped me in my career. I had a number of wonderful male mentors that recognized that I really did know what I was doing. And they led me on and produced, helped me produce a lot of good things over my life. And then I was appointed to the Reagan position as Deputy Undersecretary of the Army, where I ran all of the Army research and development for the Reagan administrations. And I can talk more about that in detail if anyone wants, but let me go on to some of my other points. I'm also a mother, a grandmother, only one grandchild, but a number of step-grandchildren. And I have raised a son of my own and 5 stepsons. And I've never raised a girl child. I have absolutely no idea. I'm told it's different, but I've never done that, so I don't know. And my son and my grandson are the lights of my life. My son is actually running all of my social media work for my campaign, and my view is he's doing a splendid job. The grandson will be, if I should get through the primary, the grandson will spend the summer down here doing door-to-door with me. He's now about 14 and about that tall. So that'll be lots of fun. But my experiences in learning the national security business and becoming very good at it and helping to keep our country safe have led me to understand how the government works, how to work with the federal government and with the Congress, and how to be cost-effective and cost-efficient. The Reagan years were good years. We did have an increase in the defense budget. We did make our country stronger and safer and better respected in the world than it was when we got in there. That same job needs to be done again today. I think the U.S. has lost an enormous amount of stature in the world. I will say the first thing that I think actually damaged us seriously was when Obama put down a red line for Syria's use of chemical weapons, and then Syria crossed the red line, and then Obama did nothing. And that absolutely, in my view, destroyed our credibility, not only with our friends and allies, but also with our enemies. And you can see what's happened with that, with the actions of Russia since that point in time. I believe, by the way, that they are actually bombing Syria in order to force the refugees into Europe in order to destabilize NATO. I think they very much want to destroy NATO and get us out of Europe. And I think they're seeing an opportunity, and I just hope that the next year is not long enough for them to take advantage of that opportunity in a serious way. I've had a small business of my own since the Reagan years. There was a small time when I worked for a big aerospace company for a while there, but then I formed a business of my own to do consulting in my technical field, which is primarily chemical and biological warfare defense. And I've been doing that now for more than 20 years. Built a company here in Montgomery County that works for both the government and for private industry, mostly the big defense contractors. And I've been doing that, so I understand the problems of trying to grow a small business in this economy, particularly with all of the impositions that both the federal government and the Maryland government put in the way. The taxes, the regulations. You know, I have to fill out an enormous amount of paperwork every year on how I dispose of the paper that I use in my office. I mean, there really are more productive things that I ought to be doing with my time, in my view. The other thing that I have really worked on, and it goes back to my years as being one of the few women in the defense business, is mentoring and helping women in a variety of ways. My two main roles in that are I mentor younger women who are either starting their own businesses, because I know what it was like to start one and grow it, or women who are in the defense business. I've established several mentoring groups that meet at my house every quarter or so, and we just talk about stuff. I usually get them an interesting woman speaker who has done interesting things. The latest was a young lawyer who worked for me in the Army in the legal office there, named Paula Boggs, and I don't know if any of you might recognize the name, but after she retired from the Army, she went to work as general counsel for Starbucks. And then when she left Starbucks after about a decade there, she started a rock band. And it actually played here in Bethesda about a month and a half ago. And it's a very successful small rock band. And it's just, you know, she came and spoke to my mentoring group as to her interesting and unique career path. And that was fun. The other thing I do is I'm a member of the House of Ruth, of the board of House of Ruth, Maryland, which is an organization based in Baltimore, but it operates throughout the state, providing shelter and legal services to women who are escaping, women and children who are escaping abusive relationships. And I can truly say that I am proud of my work with them, and I believe I have helped save the lives of women and children in this state. And that's something I intend to continue to do as a part-time thing should I become your congresswoman. That's very important to me. If you look at the statistics, 1 in 6 families is impacted by domestic violence. That means there are probably some of you here in this room that have been touched. And I think it is crucially important to help those women with a hand up, not a hand out. We provide them with a lawyer who is experienced in how to handle those sorts of things, and with a shelter while they try to get their act together. Okay, I'm the one candidate running in District 6 who is not a politician. This is my first time running for office, and it's been a fascinating experience learning how to do that, to say nothing of tiring. But, I drive out to Garrett County almost every week, and I'm learning how to, have my husband drive and me make phone calls or get a driver from my staff so that I can continue to work. You can't afford not to be doing something productive for 4 hours while you're driving from one end of this crazy gerrymandered district to the other. But I intend to keep working at it. I intend to beat Delaney if I can, if I have the opportunity to do so. One of the curious facts of coincidence is that I do live 4 houses away from him. And that part is a chuckle. He's actually been over to my house for dinner 4 years ago when he first moved in there and I was doing the good neighbor thing. I don't think I've talked to him since then. Not intentionally, it's just been, that's the way it's been. But I firmly believe that I would be a good leader for this district in Congress. I believe that I know how to serve. I believe I know how to improve the lives of the people in this district. And most important, I really do know how to get things done after my years in government. And so therefore, my name is Amie Hoeber, and I ask for your vote. And now I'd be delighted to take any questions. Gail. Maybe turn the mic off.
Turn it off.
Talk loud.
Okay? Yeah, we'll try this way.
Amie, I'll give you the same question that I asked of Terry. How are you imagining, if you do win the nomination, that you would run a successful campaign against Delaney, who has the entrenchment of incumbency and very, very deep personal pockets? Or conversely, if you are not successful, how would you actively campaign for whoever does get the nomination?
Well, obviously, I will support whoever the nominee is. Should it be someone other than myself, I will be happy to support them. In terms of how I would defeat Delaney, let me start off by saying I think I would put together a unique coalition attribute list of people to support me. I think, of course, the traditional Republicans will in fact support whoever the Republican nominee is. And I think whether it's me or Terry or one of the other of the 8 people that are running for this office. I think I can add to that a fair amount of the defense community that may not in fact be Republicans, and there are a fair number of the both retirees and active duties that are not Republican. And I think based on my background in national security, I can bring them. I think I can bring some of the soft Democrat women, conservative Democrat women, based on my history of being supportive of women's issues all my life. I think I can bring a fair number of independents just based on breadth and depth of experience and background. And the fact that I am a practical Republican, I'm willing to work across the aisle. I have friends on both sides of the aisle. I certainly worked with both when I was in the Pentagon before. I will talk about the deep pockets for a second. My husband was indeed one of the early founders of a company called Qualcomm, which some of you may have heard of. And we are, to some extent, self-funding my candidacy at this point. I've raised more money than all of the other candidates put together to date, but we are also putting our own money into this race because we do intend to win it. And I think we will continue to approach it that way. Anybody else with a question? Substantive questions? I mean, I'm anti-Common Core. I absolutely agree with Terry on all of the things that are wrong with having government managed at a federal level. And one of my major objections to Congressman Delaney at this point is he wants to extend that to the pre-K. He now wants to start the Department of Education managing a universal countrywide pre-K system. And my reaction is, what are we doing? You know, we don't want our children in that sort of environment. Yes.
I mean, can you speak to the illegal immigrants in our area? What we do, what you think about, what do we do?
Well, I think it's awful that we are a sanctuary county here in Montgomery. I mean, I think that's absolutely awful. I think we need to enforce the laws. I think we need to stop being a sanctuary. My mother was a first-generation immigrant, legal immigrant. I've been to Ellis Island and looked up her papers. Her view of the world was that she needed to assimilate, and I think there's some interesting psychology in back of the fact that she became an English teacher. And I've always thought that was her instinctive, perhaps, rather than deliberate way of assimilating. I think that we have to handle the illegal immigrants across a whole broad spectrum of things. There's a difference between an illegal immigrant family that came in 30 years ago and has been well embedded in the community and has become part of our society and contributed to it, versus the illegal immigrant that came across the border last week carrying a sack of heroin. I mean, you know, we need to be able to develop different programs for the different sort of categories, let's say, of illegal immigrants. And I certainly think the first step, though, is to close the border and enforce the existing laws. And incidentally, there's one bill that I would immediately propose if I am elected. That today, the National Guard supplements the Border Patrol. There are National Guard units that are assigned to help the border and immigration people. But because of a law called Posse Comitatus, the National Guard people are not given arrest authority. And I believe the first thing that we need to do to help this immigration and border control problem is to create an exception to Posse Comitatus that applies just to the National Guard support of the Border Patrol. And I would propose such a bill pretty fast. Anyone else with a question? Okay, back to you.
Okay.
Thank you.